Okay.
And I remember walking in them classes, and I was like, I don't understand what these folks saying, because they had an Indian dialect. And I was just like, this ain't going to work.
Yeah.
I'm done. I told my dad my freshman year, I ain't doing that. I'm going into communication and PR, because I said, well, I can be a newscaster. I want to be a newscaster and write like news and be in the news, because I love the news.
Yeah.
So went to UC. And at UC, I was a party animal. I think I partied my life away.
Yeah.
But I kept my grades up, though, for the most part.
Yeah.
But I partied one semester so bad that they kicked me out.
Oh, wow.
Or they kicked me out.
How they kick you out for partying too hard?
Because my grades dropped.
Your grades dropped, okay.
Because I was like in an honors program, and you only had like one chance to do it.
Yeah.
And that was like it. And my grades were already kind of slipping. They was giving me warnings.
Yeah.
So then I was like, shit, I got to finish this, right? Because I didn't even tell my parents why I got kicked out. I just said I'm transferring schools. So I went to Northern Kentucky University, which was right over the river from Cincinnati, and I finished my last 2 years there. So I graduated from Northern Kentucky University.
Okay.
Shout out to them.
Gotcha.
I love that school. I love UC too. UC was fun.
Yeah.
But NKU is where my heart is at. They really, NKU made me really grow up and really think about my future even more, because I cut the partying out as much, and it was like, I got 2 years, and my parents like put a deadline, like, you got 2 years, we ain't gonna keep financing you, you better figure it out and get it going, and things to that nature. So
what you graduated degree?
Public relations, communication with a minor in marketing.
Okay. Gotcha.
So I remember I was getting close to my graduation, and I maybe had like 2 semesters left, and my dad sat me down in his kitchen, and he was like, you know you ain't gonna be a newscaster, right? I said, excuse me?
Right.
I said, Dad, but you've always said I could do whatever I want to do. He's like, yeah, you can. He was like, but I'm gonna keep it 100. He was like, I graduated in 2008 when the recession hit, and so jobs weren't there. It was a different time. The housing market had tanked, and he was like, you need to get into sales. And I'm like, I am not getting into sales.
Yeah.
I want to work at CNN or ABC and be a newscaster, and that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And he was like, I have a friend that works at a bank.
So Dad just ignored exactly what you just said.
My father, he had a saying, work your plan, know your plan. And with my dad, one thing about my father is I never debated with him.
Yeah.
That was a no-no. When Dad said that's what you got to do, that's what you got to do.
Yeah.
So I kind of gave some pushback, but you're not going to win with my father. So it's just pointless. You might as well just go with the flow.
Yeah.
Because one thing I always did, I trust my dad. So it was like, okay, I sat back and I said, Dad know what he's talking about. So Dad got me the job at the bank, and I started selling.
Oh, you selling at the bank?
I sold equity lines of credit.
Okay.
So I actually worked at the corporate office. I wasn't inside of an actual branch. So I worked at the corporate office, and I'm not going to say the bank, but I worked at the corporate office, and so equity line of credit to high-end account holders who had over $1 million in money in the bank account, whether it was equity, stocks, bonds, whatever it may be. And so I was with their high roller kind of like folks who were within in their bank. And I was there for about 2 years. And I remember walking onto that sales floor, and I was like, what the heck did I get myself into, bro?
What made you say that?
Because it wasn't nobody that looked like me.
Wow.
And I was like, yo, I don't know about this. And I remember sitting through training. I'm like, man, this ain't it.
Yeah.
But then they showed me that commission structure. Everything shit.
That changed everything, right?
I was like, oh, so I ain't just making, and I made a good amount an hour. Like, And I was thankful that my dad gave this to me because in 2008, all my friends had to move home. I didn't have to move home. I still kept my apartment, my car. There were no jobs in 2008 when we graduated from college. It was really bad because, like I said, the housing market had tanked during that time and just everything had stopped pretty much. And all my girlfriends, all my friends moved back home, and I was able to stay in Cincinnati and keep everything that I had. So I had a really great job. And so I remember, like, the first couple months I was there, I was like, I don't know, because, like, I had to get on the phone, right? And it was just straight phone. It wasn't no email and all this AI. Like it wasn't none of that. Right. It was literally a yellow pad, and you get a list of accounts you got to call, and you got to pitch this equity line of credit. And these folks was hanging up on me, pow, 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 just hanging up on me. I'm like, man, I ain't gonna never hit this commission. And I had a sticky note of how much I wanted to make, right?
Okay, could you share what that was?
Yeah, I wanted to do a commission check of $15,000.
Okay.
So I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna get here, bro, but okay, I'm gonna thug it out because my daddy said I gotta do it. Like, whatever my father said, like my sisters will tell you, whatever dad said, man, you better be the best at it. And he ain't playing. I'm like, dang, my daddy's name on the line. And like, he calling his friend, checking in on me. And when I'm going over, he like, yeah, he said you been on the phone, but you ain't sold nothing yet. And I'm working on it, daddy. And he looking at me like, working ain't good enough. You need to be closing some deals like that. Like, come on. And so I'll never forget this older black lady named Miss Jules. She was like #1 on the sales floor. Again, this was when I got into sales, y'all, it was white male dominated. So it was cigar smoking, suit wearing, Tom, John kind of thing. It wasn't no sisters on the sales floor. It wasn't no sisters. That was unheard of. And when I was working in corporate, you had to wear full suits every day. It wasn't no dress down. So right. It's stockings, and you couldn't even wear bare legs when I started in sales. It was suits, real suits with heels, no flat. You couldn't even women couldn't wear flats on the floor. And you could wear blue, black, or red. Those were the only colors you could wear.
Blue, black, or red. Wow.
So I got with Miss Jules because Miss Jules drove a Cadillac. I said, oh yeah, Miss Jules. There go that dope girl magic again. Like, Miss Jules had the Cadillac. Miss Jules had the designer purses. Miss Jules coming in there like this. You know, like Miss Jules had the big rings on her hand. And I mean, a very classy woman, let me be clear. And I was like, that's somebody I want to be like. And so that's always something in my life. I was like, I always like this someone I aspire to be like. And I aspire to be like Miss Jules. And I walked up to her and I said, I need help. And Miss Jules taught me the ins and outs.
There you go. Mentorship.
Yep. And within 3 months, I hit that goal. And I had a $15,000 commission check in my bank account.
How did that feel? I
was like, yo, this is dope boy money. I was like, let go. I went to our Lennox, and it was called Kenwood Mall, they luxury mall, and I bought everything, True Religion, BB. I went nuts.
Sold them all down.
Tow it up. Cheesecake Factory, a steakhouse every day. And I got accustomed to making that kind of money. Okay. If it wasn't less than 10 bands, I would be upset. And I got accustomed. I remember going on my first President's Club trip, and this bank would rent out a whole cruise ship. Okay. And I won President's Club the first year I was there, which was unheard of.
What did you have to do to win President's Club, by the way?
So you had to bring in about 20 to 30 million in equity lines of credit. But remember, this is doable because you're dealing with high rolling bank customers who have a home in Ohio, 3 vacation homes in Florida, and 1 in Myrtle Beach. And you're dealing with that where they're putting equity lines of credit not only on their primary property, but their vacation properties as well, too. So I would hit them up with, oh, we're going to put it on your primary, and we're going to put it on your vacation home. So it was easy to rack up. But what I learned from Miss Jewel was the mouthpiece, the gift of gab, building relationships, making people feel good. When I was, this is Rhasheeda calling from XYZ Bank. How you doing? I see you own property. This is how much equity you have. Do you happen to have any home improvements going on? Any kids graduating? Anything to that nature? This is how much money you could pull out. It's crazy. I still remember.
There you go. Still got that.
And people be like, yeah, actually, my daughter's getting married. And I'm like, well, how much you trying to spend on that? Well, I'm going to spend $80,000 on it. I said, okay, well, you trying to build another property? Yeah, we are. And so that's how I built my rapport of just asking them, what problems do you have where money can fix those problems?
Exactly.
And they were like, this is seamless. Like, yeah, let's pull the equity out and you can do everything you want to do.
Yeah.
And go on that vacation and buy your Ferrari and do what you want to do. And people love me. It was to the point where they were referring their neighbors to me and making them pull their money into the bank as well, too. And so when I went to that first President's Club and we were on a Carnival cruise, and it was my first cruise ship, and it blew my mind because back in those days, President's Club was really President's Club, where they, like I said, they rented out a whole Carnival cruise for the entire bank. The entire top banking people were there, and everybody from all over the country are at this President's Club. So it's about 200 people.
Okay.
And I'll never forget my VP, Greg, walked up to me, Greg Igney, and he said, you know what? You are a force to be reckoned with. He said, I am so proud of you. He said, my expectation of you is you are here every year. He said, you got it.
There you go.
And this was a white male that told me this. And I was like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
I got it.
That raised your belief.
And the 2 years I was there, I went.
Yeah.
And I remember Greg Egney passed of cancer, and that broke my heart because that was the one person that he always, every day, stopped by my desk. Hey, Miss Rhasheeda, how you doing? He would ask me, what you doing with your money? Are you investing it? And when he passed, I started investing my money. I wouldn't listen to him at the beginning because, when you start making that kind of money at the beginning, you just like, I'm just spending. And then when you start buying everything, ain't nothing more to buy.
Yeah.
And because of him, it was like, okay, when you making this type of money, invest it as well, too. And so shout out to Greg because Greg started that for me.
What type of investments you was doing yourself?
Stocks. A lot of it was stocks. He just taught me how to diversify my portfolio with stocks. And so that's where I got introduced to stock very early. So I was like 21 with a stock portfolio. Like, he introduced me to one of his guys, and I never had called him, but when he passed, I called him, and I was like, Greg referred me to you. And so I always keep a stock portfolio to this day. And I have a whole story about the stock portfolio later on we're going to touch on.
Yeah.